Welcome to the Short Term Show, the show about short-term rentals and long-term wealth, with real property owners hosting real properties who are crushing it in the vacation and short-term rental space. And here's your host, Avery Carl.
If you invest in real estate or manage properties, you need banking that's truly built for your business. Many traditional banks make it difficult to sync banking information across many of the personal finance platforms that we as real estate investors use every day. This is why I recommend Relay. Relay is an online banking and money management platform that's a perfect fit for any real estate business. First, there are no account fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balances, which means you get to keep more money in your pocket. Relay also goes above and beyond the banking basics to help you understand precisely what you're earning, spending, and saving. You get up to 20 checking accounts to organize and allocate income for things like day-to-day expenses, investments, or taxes. And if you have multiple investment properties set up as separate business entities, that's no problem. Relay lets you open unlimited accounts and access everything from one single login. Best of all, Relay makes your bookkeeping speedy and meticulous by giving you ultra-detailed transaction data and directly syncing it back to QuickBooks Online and Xero. The ability to have so many separate bank accounts and allocation options in my user dashboard has really transformed my personal banking experience. I will never go back. It takes 10 minutes to apply for a Relay account, and you can do it online at relayfi.com/theshorttermshop. So again, for more information and to open an account, go to relayfi.com/theshorttermshop. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Short Term Show. I am so excited to interview some of my favorite podcast hosts today. And today we have Sarah and Annette from Thanks for Visiting. And I'm really excited to interview them because they have a different strategy. They have a different approach than what I typically do. And I really like to focus on or interview people who do things differently than me, because I really want you guys to take away from this podcast that there's more than one way to skin this cat, which is actually a terrible metaphor. But
you caught yourself. You caught yourself.
Yeah. But it is a metaphor, and I'm just going to roll with it. There's more than one way to skin this cat. There's a lot of ways to do it. So anyway, I want to make sure we don't take up too much time with me obsessing over what I already said and if that was a good metaphor or not. So let's go ahead and talk to the girls. Hey guys, you want to introduce yourselves and tell us, a little bit about yourselves? I'm sure most of our listeners probably listen to your podcast too, but for those of you that may not, start at the beginning for us.
Sure. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah. So my name is Sarah Karakayan.
I am Annette Grant, and together we are Thanks for Visiting.
And Annette and I met about 3 years ago at a city council meeting. I had just moved here from New York City, where I started my short-term rental journey in 2010 in Queens, New York. And I wanted to really get a move on my portfolio. And New York was proving to be having a lot of red tape that
slow moving.
Yes, very slow. Everything else in New York is fast, except for when you're an actor property. And you're trying to buy property. So I moved here with some proceeds from a sale that I did really well on. And I met this one because the city of Columbus was imposing some regulations in Columbus that were like, we're here for regulations. We're all about it. But there were some that were, unjust. And so she sat next to me. I met her, and the rest of that is history, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I'll let Nettie tell her side of the story.
Yeah. And I just want to let listeners know that Sarah actually sold her property in Queens as a short-term rental.
I did.
And not just, a single family home. She sold all of the furniture. She gave them all the prior numbers. So if you are just getting started, you are starting a business. So keep all of those records. You can sell a business and your home at the same time. The second thing I want to say is show up to city council. It is important. Your voice does matter. It was the first one that I had ever attended, and I will now show up whenever these meetings take place that impact our income. But I sat next to Sarah at that short-term rental city council meeting because I had been Instagram stalking her, and I'd wanted to start a podcast because hosts it gets lonely out there being a host. And I wanted to find a hosting bestie that I could talk about laundry and guests and, where she gets her coffee and how she does her pricing and what her next move was. And because I have I actually started my short-term rental career partnering with a real estate developer and actually just short-term renting apartments. So they were small. They were sleeping 2 to 4 people. And I had I'd like to call it co-hosting with him, and we did a profit share. So I want to let everybody know out there, I did not own any real estate. I partnered with someone. I hosted it. We did a profit share, and it launched me into this crazy, wild world of short-term rentals. Sarah launched our podcast. It's 3 years strong. We have an online membership. We are here to up-level what it means to be a host and what happens after you acquire that property, the operations. This is a hospitality business, and that's what we focus on.
All right. So lots and lots of great stuff to talk about. So first, let's talk about what is in you guys' portfolio, either together or separate.
Yeah. Sure. So Annette and I bought our first property together just last year, and we bought it off of a client of ours who we were managing her property. And she just casually mentioned like, hey, I think I'm going to sell it. And I was like, you know what, before you take that to your agent, what do you think about selling it to me? And I'm a licensed real estate agent too. So I was like, no fees. Like, let's just, what matters to you and your family in this. She had a time of change. She was having a baby. And so we came to an agreement, and I went to Annette and I was like, hey, I am tapped out on cash. You want to do this with me? And so not only do we have a business together, we own properties together too. Yeah. So there's that. My husband and I own a few multi-families. We actually just sold a travel trailer that we short-term rented. So I've short-term rented all the things. And then we also manage 36 doors for others. And we are more traditional property management, short-term rental property management company.
And AKA will say, in our world, we call it co-hosting. So if you hear us refer to it as co-hosting over property management, that's what, we'll go with that. That's what we say.
And where are these properties located?
Cool.
Yeah. So they're all in downtown Columbus, Ohio. We've got one more vacation rental property that's about an hour south of Columbus, Ohio. There's an area here called Hocking Hills. It's gorgeous. There's like giant cliffs in the middle of Ohio. Who knew? But so we've got one vacation rental there, but the rest of our units are metro rentals. So downtown Columbus, and we really serve families, business travelers, that sort of thing.
Okay. I have a question about that. So for people who want to focus on like a metro market, what makes you choose the downtown area versus like some further out, maybe some suburbs that might be a little cheaper?
Sure. Really just us knowing our goals and where we're positioned in the city. Sarah and I both live downtown, so it was important to us to be close to them. Our team, since there are so many units, it makes it a lot easier for us to manage all the properties and have the team be able to get back and forth to places in a very small amount of time. And we do have a lot of things within we know we have the Ohio State University. We have a lot of sporting venues. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies all downtown. So we have tried to make it to our advantage and the size of our properties that we're going to have the most bookings in the most condensed area. So that's important for us.
And our exit strategies are going to be a little bit more clear for us. So if it doesn't work as a short-term rental, we can go to midterms. If it doesn't work as a midterm rental, we understand the long-term numbers. If we can't do it long-term, we can sell that thing. You know what I mean? And so different neighborhoods and different markets within our market, we just wanted to simplify it for us because we also we have another component of our business, which is the education side. So really, it was our goals.
And we'll be honest, with being downtown, there is a lot more transient, just neighborhoods too. So we do have some friends, they do very well out in the suburbs, but man, I've had people that are smack dab in a cul-de-sac and the neighbors just are like, they don't want them there, and they will do anything in their power not to have them there. And so with being downtown, there's a lot. You could have a giant single family home next to a multifamily home, and it's more of just woven into the neighborhoods a little bit more. So that's something that is alluring to Sarah and I also.
Yeah, people who want to live in a suburb are trying to get away from the whole downtown thing. So I would imagine, yeah, short-term rentals are going to be less well received in suburban areas than downtown.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but we know people that like crush it out there and they're in that neighborhood too, or in that community. And so that makes it easy for Sarah and I too. Like we are woven into the community here. So we can tell our guests, hey, we can be over in 5 minutes. We live right down the street, and that can happen in those suburban areas. So just do your research, know your area, and we know you can have success.
Totally. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And like, I would never buy something in a suburb. I just would not. And to short term anyway. And there's always going to be somebody out there who's like crushing it, doing that thing that I would never do. So you just really have to like choose the path that works the best for you and what your goals are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's the size range on these things that you guys are managing? And you said there's 36, right?
Yep, there's 36, and they range from single family homes, and those single family homes are sometimes has some creative space planning. So we've got a single family property. It's a parcel where there's a carriage house. So that's a unit. And then it's a giant Victorian. So that's a unit. And then we have a basement of that Victorian with 11-foot ceilings. That's a unit. And the big Victorian we sell as 2 products, either a 3-bedroom or a 7-bedroom. So we really love to diversify our properties. Same with the multifamily. But most of our units are 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and I would say 850 square feet is probably an average size of the space. And yeah, they're it's kind of like this. It's kind of like our operations are very like modeled after hotel operations because they're so small, and we have a lot of multifamilies and they're under one roof, and we can get to places quicker.
Yeah, I think that's the key for listeners. A lot of these properties, one roof has 12 doors under it. 2 other ones have 4 underneath them. So it isn't 36 little, dots around either. That's what makes it really nice. And then when we have those roofs, also like they have the same refrigerator, the same dishwasher, everything's kind of like Sarah said, like hotelified in that sense. This makes it easier to manage.
Streamlined, totally. Like just one brand,
yes,
this is what I have to do if this breaks. I think that's really, really smart. So do you find that at least in your market, the bigger ones, even though I assume, I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I assume the bigger ones have a lower occupancy rate than the smaller ones, but do the bigger ones still make more money?
It's a great question, Avery. So you're right with the occupancy. So it's harder to book a property that can accommodate, even when we make the giant home a 3-bedroom. So that's 6 people, because if it's a queen or king bed, we allow 2 people per room. We don't subscribe to the heads and beds theory. That's not how we like to make our money. So we do diversify these larger properties, because what we found is like a 7-bedroom property or a 4-bedroom property, we were having a hard time booking them during the week. So we put on locks on certain doors that have codes on them that only the guests who booked it as a larger property get access to those bedrooms, which made it more attractive for us to sell those properties from Monday to Thursday night, which helped with occupancy. And it gets even closer to where our multifamilies are performing in terms of both revenue and occupancy. But yeah, if there's a house, we don't have a house that we haven't been able to be flexible with, because when we onboard, we're very picky. Like we are already thinking about the success of that home, keeping that owner happy. If we're the owners, how can we be happy with those returns? But yeah, to answer your question in a simple way, if it's a large home in a metro market and you can't diversify it, just expect it to have lower occupancy, and your nightly rate's going to be higher. But is that going to equate to what you need it to be to make your numbers make sense for you?
I love that pivot and that creativity of like, okay, well, this is 7 bedrooms and it really only books on the weekends. How can we get it booked during the week? And most people would just say, just drop the price. But no, you guys have found another way to do that. And I love that. I think that's really creative.
And the homes are beautiful. And people, so even if it's just a couple, they want to stay there. They are on amazing streets here, and they are absolutely gorgeous. They're well-designed, prime location. And so if someone's just coming in for business, a single person, they still want to stay there, and we want to give them that opportunity. And so we you don't have to drop that rate as low as you think. If you can mitigate how much work your team has to do, and the way that the homes are set up too, it's really nice. Sometimes these bedrooms are completely separate floors, so there's no reason for them to go to the third floor at all. So it doesn't feel antiquated, like, oh, there's random doors that are locked on the floor that they're staying on. So that the design is, makes sense also.
Yeah, so they don't feel like they're missing out on something.
Yeah,
right. It's like
walking past.
It's like, I don't want to walk up to the third floor anyways.
I will say sometimes a guest will say, oh, what's behind that door? Even though we let them know prior to booking and upon booking. And sometimes we can upgrade them.
Yeah.
They're like, I was like, well, there's a bedroom. I'll send them pictures. And they're like, you know what? I don't know. Uncle Bob might stop by. Like, could we add this room? So it's almost like a nice little upgrade to their reservation that may not have ever popped up when they were looking because it was just out of their price range or they didn't think they needed 3 bedrooms, right? So it's just a really nice way to stay flexible.
So really good segue into my next question. And that is, what management software are you using? Because you have to be using something pretty robust to be managing 36. And then you have this listing within the listing. So what are you using? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're using Hostfully. And that was after months of demonstrations and blog post reading and all the things. And here's the deal. Every software that I tried out, that I explored, they all had different things. And I was like, God, I wish it did that. I can tell your listeners, I did the work. There is no perfect PMS. Because here's the deal. Like, every home we manage is a snowflake. Every owner I manage for is a snowflake. Like, everything is very different when you're managing
even
property,
when you try to streamline it.
Even when you try to streamline it. So, if anyone's listening, they're like, because actually just this morning, we were talking to some of our coaches, and they're like, there's a lot of talk about PMS and what everyone's using. And it's tough for someone in my position to tell them like exactly which one to use, because they all just offer and they have different strengths. Here's why I liked Hostfully. I liked Hostfully because they admitted that they did not want to be the best at, dynamic pricing. They're not going to offer, a great cleaning operation component. But what they do is they have an open API to all of our other favorite softwares, and it's a really seamless integration. And so I was like, okay, cool. So what Hostfully is telling me is that their specialty is in the calendar and the payment processor. Cool. And then I get to leverage everyone else who focuses on their zone of genius for their software and just integrate it into Hostfully. So, and the price also was really great compared to some other softwares. So that's why we chose Hostfully.
I need to piggyback off that and say that we also use a property care. We use Breezeway also. If you do not know what Breezeway is, please go to breezeway.io. Check them out.
Changed our lives.
Yeah. So that is used in conjunction with property management. It is property care, and that allows us to make sure that the cleaners or the turnover team is doing what they need to do. Our maintenance team is doing what they need to do. We are doing what we need to do to care for the home. And that has been a game changer also. And that I would encourage you to look, no matter how many properties you have.
Yeah,
to look
one
into that
property,
too.
and this would still be a smart investment for you,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you dream of scaling. Get it before you think you might even need it. And both softwares are priced to be friendly to a new investor or new co-host.
So Breezeway, what's their specialty? What exactly does that do? Say I'm new.
Yep.
Sure.
So if you're new, if you could imagine, it is where our cleaners come to live online. It is where our maintenance techs come to live online. It is where our property inspectors come to live. So the reservation specialists, the booking specialists, they live in Hostfully. Anyone who is in the property doing care, cleaning, maintenance, or inspections live in Breezeway. Because Breezeway, like if let's say you're doing a property inspection, so after our cleaners leave, we always have another third party go in there and make sure everything is perfect, make sure safety elements are in check, which Breezeway does that too. It reminds us to change the filters, reminds us to check the smoke detectors, it reminds us to check the fire extinguisher, right? And then if there's a maintenance issue, I can do a maintenance ticket, just like a fancy hotel would. I can put a ticket in and boom, it goes to my favorite handy person, and they can see it. They use the app free while, it's a paid service for me, but it's just a great have it all in one place. It integrates with Hostfully and just keeps us all on track.
And everyone hopefully listening, and if you don't know yet, turning over a home for a guest is very different than cleaning a home, that you live in. And you need to have checklists. Things get left behind. You don't check you don't look at the forks and knives at your own house when you're having it cleaned. You don't look at the bottom of the shower curtain every single time. So it is the checklist too for the team, and they can take photos, and it's great because we can have date and time stamping. So if there's any damages, it's just, please run to Breezeway right now today. It's a game changer there, and it's all mobile. So you can your team can have it on the run, because that's another thing too. Like, can't have your laptop out going through checklist, or it's, Sarah and I back in the day, we'd have manual checklists. People go, okay, did you check this? Did you look at where's the remote control? Did you check the fire extinguisher? It takes care of all that.
And the cool thing about that too is, like, if the cleaner arrives on site, they're already panicked that they're going to get blamed for things, right? So if they see damage upon arrival, they will take a photo, and it is in the metadata of that photo that photo was taken at 10:05 a.m. on this day. And so we also have photos we can compare it to from prior to that guest check-in to say this damage was caused during your stay. So I know a lot of listeners right now might be thinking, well, how can I get my cleaning team to use this? And honestly, it's a sigh of relief for them when we bring it to them in that regard. Like, this is to protect you and your integrity. Also, these checklists are our contracts with each other. If you check off that, you checked under the bed, that is our contractual agreement that you've done that, so that I can release payment to you. Another cool thing that Breezeway does is they have a messaging component, and it ties into your calendar. It doesn't have to be your PMS. It could be if you're just leveraging an OTA like Airbnb. It'll tie into that. And if it detects you have an orphan night, a night that's not yet booked,
a gap night,
it'll automatically message your guest on either side. Hey, do you want to come a day early? Hey, do you want to stay an extra day? And we'll help you make money and help you think ahead, so that you can maybe sell those nights that are just in the middle and offer them in at a great rate at a discount. So it's just like this robust way to keep your properties looking awesome and make some more money.
Breezeway, guys, check it out. I have
sorry.
Yeah, I haven't looked.
No, we are super passionate. We're not going to lie. We are affiliates for Breezeway. Let's put that out there. But it's because it's changed the game for us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
It's professionalized what we do. And I think listeners, we all love this industry, right? But unfortunately, we get a bad rap because what makes the media headlines is the stuff that's not great. But if we can just be really good community members and really take care of these homes and take care of the guests and make a short-term rental stay something that continues to be an option versus a hotel, I mean, that's just good for all of us, whether you're in vacation rentals or metro short-term rentals. And so just giving a crap about what you do every day and professionalizing what you do, whether it's one home, 36, 100, I mean, that's where we can make an impact. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, it's because you care. So this just helps you keep it streamlined, because as we all know, real estate is a crazy fast moving industry. And then you put in people staying on a nightly rate on top of that, and you just need a way to just organize your thoughts and all the things that you have to do.
Absolutely. That is the better the overall guest stay, like across all hosts and all locations, like the better off all of us are, whether hosts, investors, etc. So that's my next question. I want to get into your co-hosting. So for those people out there who really want to get into the short-term rental game, and rental arbitrage might not be an option for them because that seems to be increasingly harder to do. I'm not really in that space, but that's kind of what it sounds like just from the outside looking in. And, maybe they don't have the cash in hand to go be able to become an owner right out of the gate. Co-hosting might be a good opportunity for somebody. So how do you, let's start here. As a new co-host, how do you get clients?
Yeah. People ask us this question all the time, and the answer is kind of simple. It's just talk about your need and want to do it all the time. It's like we were talking to our coach last night, and how many times it takes someone to let something sink in?
Yeah, repetition. It's like
8 times in a certain period of time
to even hear you. That what you said.
Yeah,
what your message is.
I got my first co-host off of Instagram stories, and I was just just being myself and just talking to myself on my phone for either no one to hear or everyone to hear. And someone was like, hey, I actually have a long-term rental that I want to try this out. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have time for this. I love what you've done with yours. You seem to care. Would you mind managing mine? I mean, it can be as like, as simple as that. It can be where you go to meetups.
Yeah, I was going to say real estate meetups are a great place. I mean, Sarah and I, at every single one we go to, there are long-term investors that want to switch some of their portfolio over to short-term. I will let you know that's exactly what I did when I started co-hosting. The developer that I worked with, he had over 1,000 units. And I'm like, you probably have one or two that aren't renting as quickly. He's like, you know what? I do, because they were interesting places. They're good for short-term rentals. They were quirky, and people moved in for a year and they moved out because they knew there was quirkiness to them. But for an overnight stay, it was perfect because of the location. So I took some of his low-hanging fruit on his long-term portfolio and turned them into short-term. And now he has a much larger short-term portfolio. But I think what Sarah said, just get out, tell people what you want to do. If you're listening to this podcast, be on TikTok or Instagram, show people listening to the show, and then go to the meetups and then just start connecting. And if there's a Facebook group in your area of hosts, a lot of times people are out there asking for help. You need a team when you're a host. So
I was just going to say that you don't even have to do the heavy lift of starting a co-hosting company. I just went through about a month or two of trying to find help for my co-host company, right? So even if you don't have any interest in starting your own business, you could help a co-host, a co-host. So there's just so many opportunities, but you got to be the go-to expert. How do you do that? Brag that you're listening, to the short-term shop, let people know like what you learned, write a blog post, but you got to keep talking about it. And if you feel like you're talking ad nauseum, multiply that by 2.
Right. For sure.
Totally. And going to meetups, like I'm the queen of not wanting to leave the house. Like I'm super introverted naturally. Like this is difficult for me to put out a podcast. It takes a lot out of me, but I have every excuse in the book for, I don't feel like going up to this meetup. I don't feel like doing that. Every time I go to one, I come out of there thinking, man, I'm really glad we talked ourselves into leaving the house and doing this because I met this person or that person, or I learned this or that. So meetups really are important. And like people have kind of just started doing a lot of like Facebook posting, getting in Facebook groups. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like now a lot of the big short-term rental Facebook groups are just like agents or property managers trolling for business. And there have been times that I've kind of thought that about somebody who, is posting a lot in one of our groups. And I'm like, man, this person, what are they up to? And then I meet them in person at a meetup and I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, these people are cool. So it really is important to like meet people face to face sometimes and let them feel your energy and see like, oh, yeah, who you are online isn't necessarily like who you really are.
I'm a skilled networker. And I think I want everybody to know you don't have to meet everybody at the meetup. I go in intentionally saying I can meet one person. I need to just meet one person. Like I went to that city council. There were probably 800 people there. I was like, I'm going to meet Sarah. I saw her online. I'm like, she's the person I'm going to sit down and talk to. And look where I didn't care about anybody else. So I also want to offer that. Like, you don't have to go in and say hi to everybody. You can still be introverted and just say, hey, I'm going to chat with one person, and because it only takes one person to truly change the whole trajectory.
Totally agree with that. Really, really great advice. So let's talk about really quick. And I know you sold it, but I want to hear about that travel trailer. Were you renting it out on Outdoorsy or was it actually, okay, you were using Outdoorsy. So
Outdoorsy and RV share. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about the difference between having like an RV or a camper on your property and renting it as a short-term rental unit or putting it on Outdoorsy or RV share.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, so number one, it's a travel trailer. So I also learned the lingo. It doesn't have an engine in it. You can't hop in it and drive it away. You got to hook it up to a truck. And the difference is with RV Share Outdoorsy usually is it goes off your property, right? Whether you take it to a nearby campground or a family comes and picks it up and they take it to, I'm in Ohio, they take it to Florida. It's going off your property. So the difference is, right, is like, it's not attached to any sort of like quote unquote foundation. It's not always set up for success. And every time it comes back, there's a variable, right? It's unlike any other variable that we experience with people coming to your property, checking in. It's already attached to water and sewer or whatever you've got set up. What I will say is the ROI on those things is amazing. For example, I bought this thing for what? Like I bought it brand new, which don't do that. Okay. Don't buy them brand new. That was a rookie mistake. Did that. But I bought it for like $37,000. And, from what is it, like April to middle of November in Ohio, we rented that sucker out for $1,000 a week. So you do the math on that. Like we would, and I would say, 3 weeks a month. I mean, that's pretty good for a $37,000 investment. But it just, for us, it really tripped up our flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very different plumbing than a house. Like it's very different. Like there's styrofoam behind the walls, and my husband and I are like, we're pretty darn handy. We flip a lot of houses, and it was always just this thing that stopped us in our tracks. So I will say that great ROI. It's a great way to get started. And if that's what you focus on, if that's your niche, do that, because you'll create your own systems and processes. But if you want to do both, like houses and that, just know that it's a different flow. That's the best way to describe it.
But I love that if you have one, or someone in your family has one sitting in their, on their driveway or in storage, it's such a great way to get started. And again, you don't have to open up your whole entire calendar.
No.
Say, let's do this for, 60 days, 90 days. Like give
cash
yourself that freedom.
injection. Yeah, you could do that too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have never rented ours, but I will say, I'll go out on a limb and say, make sure you get a travel trailer and not a motorhome, because my personal experience with our motorhome is there are so many more things on there that can break than you ever thought possible. And it will happen. It happened. I mean, every time we take ours out, 4 or 5 things break, and it's fine because that's, part of the thing if you're going to be the vacationer. But I just can't imagine somebody renting that from us and then having one of these things break, and then they want us to tell them we don't know how to do it.
No, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Even with the travel trailers, they're like, the jack's not coming down, and I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's like when you rent from like a company, like they've got people all over the country that'll come out and help you. But when it's you really need to have a solid understanding of every aspect of that thing, so you can help them over the phone, because otherwise they're gonna have a bad experience. They're in Florida, you're in Ohio. So yeah. But it's a great moneymaker.
And ours, it always breaks at the worst time too. Like ours broke at a campground that we were in a totally fine area that had, restaurants and stuff. But for some reason, the actual campground we were at had no cell service, and the internet that they did have wasn't enough to it was like a big, huge KOA with like hundreds of sites. It wasn't good enough for everybody to be able to be using it. And so we didn't really have internet either. So we couldn't even be on the phone with a tech at actually looking at it. We had to drive 4 miles down the road and call them and be like, let me go check, and then go back.
Oh no. Oh yeah. That's
that's real.
Work. Yeah.
That's real.
But that is real.
Yeah. That's real life with a motorhome. So travel trailer, less things to break, but there's still things. So it's definitely a different business, but that's exactly why I wanted to ask you that question, because I think a lot of people, when they get into short-term rentals, they see all of these different opportunities and all these different directions to go. And they're like, okay, I'm going to buy vacation rentals. I'm going to do metro market. I'm going to do midterms. Let me get a travel trailer. And it's good for people to see, yes, you can do whatever you want, but it's good to kind of focus in on one thing so that you don't get tripped up.
Yeah. And I'll elaborate on that. I mean, so we're in the metro market. We do metro stays. Metro or midterm stays ended up being like a really big thing to explore. And I dabbled into it, and I was like, you know what? If Annette and I've learned anything in the past 3 years of our business together, it's the riches are in the niches. If you can find focus, what you focus on will expand. It will explode. So I'm also here. I get it, like throwing spaghetti in the wall and see what sticks, see where your passion lies. So sometimes, even if you educate yourself by listening to podcasts and all that kind of stuff, you still want to just try it for yourself. And I don't want to take that away from you, but being able to pivot fast when you find what really excites you, if you can go deep on something narrow, there's just a lot of money to be made when you become the expert at that one thing.
Really, really great advice. Love that. So the last thing that I want to touch on before we get to the last 3 questions of the show is your short-term rental in Queens. Let's talk about that, because that's definitely I selfishly, having lived in New York for years, I would love to have something in New York, not as this would be, specifically a vanity thing. Like I would like to be able to take my kids up to New York and go to a Mets game and go do all that stuff that we did. But I would also, it pains me to have something that I can't rent out and make money when I'm not there.
Mhm.
So how did you navigate the rules in New York? Because they're some of the toughest in the country. So what did that look like?
I'm not gonna lie, it was a different time. So I was there I was there from 2005 to 2018. We started short-term renting in 2010 and we sold it in 2017, right? So, and since then, it's been regulations have just like everywhere else in the country, regulations have caught up to the popularity of short-term renting. But I always say, I think actors invented short-term rentals in New York because I was there as an actor, as a stage actor. And when you got a gig to go on tour, or if you're going to do it at a theater, elsewhere, you would find a sublet, right? You would just go on Gypsy Housing on Facebook groups and you would find, hey guys, I'm gone from, I'm doing summer stock. I'm gone from June to September. Who wants to take over my, just pay my rent? There's no there wasn't arbitrage or anything like that. It was really just like, you send me money, you can sleep in my bed. And so that when Airbnb became a thing in 2010, I was like, ooh, this is even better. That being said, you'd have to the listeners would have to figure out the
plus it was your primary residence
it was
too,
my
which
primary
changes a
residence.
lot of things in a lot of cities. And so it was at ADU in the primary residence.
Well, it wasn't even an ADU.
But-
It was the reason why I bought it was because it had a basement door. So you walk up to get to the front door and that takes you like the normal home, right? It had a basement door, separate entrance. And I thought, oh, my actor friends can just come and go as they please. And it's just a nice private thing. And it was the basement. And so we added, it had a sink and a toilet. So we added a shower. We dug down the floor so it could have 8-foot ceilings. And we locked it off from the rest of the home, the kitchen, all that. We just put a little mini fridge, a coffee maker, and that sort of thing in it. So again, I talk about that flexibility of the property. I get excited when I can see more than one way to use a property. And so I kind of made it a duplex. It wasn't really a duplex, but I kind of made it that way. So if you wanted to have a property like that, and every building in New York is different too. So I know there's citywide situations, but yeah. And there might be some flexibility with the midterm stay. So if you could put your short-term rental, I'm using air quotes, on a Gypsy Housing website on Facebook and target actors who really are there just to do a short-term, maybe they're doing a Broadway contract. Maybe they're doing an off-Broadway contract. Maybe they're just, you know what I mean? They're just there for
that's actually
3
a
or
good
4
idea
months.
for you personally. Avery. That way you could use it maybe in the summertime when your schedule with your kids is a little more flexible, and then book it 6 other months.
People think nurses is the way to go. If you're in New York or LA, it's like actors. There's no shortage of actors coming in and out, and so that might be the key, Avery, to
musicians too. That
was
actually my first exposure to it also. So I was a musician. I was always touring, and I didn't ever actually do that because I was too scared at the time. But my roommate's boyfriend would go on tour and just rent his room to whoever. And I was like, man, that's kind of crazy. But then he got into it wasn't called arbitrage at the time. It was around 2011. And he started renting all these apartments and just putting them on Airbnb. And I was like, what? Yeah. Wait a minute. You're not having to bartend like the rest of us? That was my first exposure to it too. It was also in New York. So that's a good idea. Maybe I'm going to do that. I'm going to go call an agent right now.
There you go.
Something in New York.
We talk about all the
hey, we'll rent a month or 2 from you.
No,
so
Avery,
you've already got someone that will midterm rent from you. Yeah.
I have dreams of Long Island City overlooking Manhattan. So
or we can just buy it together. Let's do that.
Yeah. We could probably get a little further with that.
Let's do that.
All right, guys. Well, you have been fantastic guests. Thank you so much for coming on. And as we're down to the final 3 questions of the show, you can answer these jointly or independently, however you guys want to do it. The first question is, what advice would you give 20-year-old Sarah and Annette?
Sarah would say it's not just for fancy people. I mean, because I think the answer is start now. But that's, for me, it was I didn't think I deserved it, right? I'm an actor. I'm out of college. I just got to survive. And if I knew how accessible it was, and that it's not just for fancy people, and change my mindset that I am fancy just by being a human being, I wish I could have said that to her. Anything for you, Annette?
I'm just going to piggyback off that one. We'll go to the next one.
That's a good one.
Okay.
That is a good one. Because I remember thinking, why would I buy a house if it's not going to be as nice as my parents?
Sure.
And that was just so dumb. But I remember thinking that. You don't buy houses unless you're going to live there forever.
Right.
All right. And kind of along those same lines, what advice would you give a new investor who's looking to get started today in the middle of 2022? Almost.
Ooh, I want to take this one actually. To like silence the noise of everyone around you. Because you listen to these podcasts, you read books, and everybody wants to know how many doors you have, and like know your goals and silence all the other noise. Like just take your next step. Like what's your next base hit? Everything doesn't have to be a grand slam. Like what is the base hit that you can do? And don't worry about where everybody else is and how they seem like further ahead. Like start where you are and silence that for sure.
And let's say you know your goals and where you want to be in, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I was just lamenting about this other day. It's like I remember working with someone who was, 10 years ahead of where I wanted to be, and working with that person for a few years. Oh my gosh. So if you can swallow your ego, help someone else build their, empire, and the things you'll learn from being behind the scenes of whatever it is you want to do is better than any college education too. So, and maybe that's how you throw spaghetti in the wall. Watch them throw spaghetti and learn from what they're doing and what their problems are. And so we just see a lot of people like tapping out of like we're helping other people way too soon. It's like stick it out and learn something and really dig in for a little bit longer than just, a few months.
Also great advice. And last question of the show, what is your favorite book that has impacted your mindset?
Compound Effect, Darren Hardy. Super simple. I read it every single year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mine is very cliche, but it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'll never forget being on that Q train, reading that book when I was 25 and being like, what the heck? Whoa. You know what I mean? So sorry, but it still is the book that I will never forget reading it on the train and changed my life.
Hey, I think that was an important one for all of us.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, for anyone who's listening, who wants to follow along with your journey, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? All that fun stuff.
Oh, so many places. So our podcast, anywhere you listen to The Short Term Shop, you will also or Short Term Show, you'll find us, but go to shorttermshop.com too. We are anywhere you get your podcast. We are on Instagram at thanksforvisiting_, and you can go to our website. It's thanksforvisiting.me, and we offer a free workshop. It's upcoming soon. It's thanksforvisiting.me/workshop. You want to check that out.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. And we will catch you later.